How are we doing, everybody? Welcome again to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we are not necessarily concluding, obviously, but we are finishing off the conversation that we've been having this week about the hip movement. Talked last week about a step-in drill, which I'm very fond of, you know, the old Happy Gilmore, but what I was basically saying is that what you want to do is that as you're stepping in, you want to keep turning back as you start to step. The last video, the next video upon hips, then I started to talk about the importance of, in the backswing position, turning your hips, and gave you a couple of good measurements. Then the next couple of videos were very similar natured. It was very much about the importance of maybe understanding which type of hip rotation that you're going to be going for, because obviously they would look different in terms of the movement. But what I've also been trying to clarify in the last couple of videos is that, just to summarize very briefly now, if you're going to turn very centered like so, or if you're going to turn where you kind of keep this upper leg, you can see the difference. Instead of spinning that this way, I'm going to keep it outward facing and pull back. It creates more of a squat. The point is that you need to choose which one you're going to be trying to endeavor to do. What I'm also trying to clarify is that although things will look lateral and there can be a small amount of linear motion upon the trail leg, you don't necessarily want to start going down the route where you think it's a lateral motion, because the problem that you have, it's like throwing a ball. You know, if you throw a ball or you pitch the ball or whatever you're going to do, as you're kind of stepping, you're still turning, right, to generate power, but the weight is not on that left-hand side until much later, once you start to re-establish through rotation. So my concern is, with amateur golfers, is that you would swing up towards the top and you might watch, I don't know, say Dustin Johnson, for example, who would start to initiate his downswing this way, where he keeps that leg outward facing and pull that lead leg back, and it starts to look more lateral. And it might have a small, tiny fragmentation of linear motion towards it, and all of a sudden you start to think that it's a shifting pressure, because obviously you've heard it before. You know, you're swinging up to the top and then thinking you've got to shift, close this way, right? Because it just starts to become a mess. So spent a lot of the time on the channel talking about the priorities, posture, the rotation upon the backswing, the ability to separate, not getting too bogged down with how things look. But obviously now we're trying to go down this next stage of detail in terms of, you know, the transition and why pros look the way they do, and that's why I'm just trying to reiterate, this will be the last one upon the three that I've done, very similar nature in terms of the discussion. But just because as you watch them, hopefully then it will start to make more sense in terms of how things look to potentially how you think they look, right? So we're trying to clarify that interpretation. Now today, what we're talking about again is what we see with professional golfers, and especially the most athletic ones, is that as they continue to complete the backswing position, they start to initiate the start to the downswing. So that means until the club reaches its capacity, they look like they start to, should we say, shift pressure towards the left-hand side and start to what would be known as fall in, which basically means it's starting that initiation, as I'm demonstrating here, like that sort of squatting motion. Now, the reason why this will look that way is similar to what I've already said. If a professional golfer swings back like so and they trigger a hip rotation, and then as they continue to turn the hips as they complete the swing up towards the top, then you can start to see the way, just by quite simply continuing to turn more than an amateur golfer would, it starts to portray this kind of movement of towards the left-hand side, if that makes sense, right? So most amateur golfers might struggle with hip rotation in its entirety anyway. You know, they might struggle to demonstrate hip rotation without sliding or coming out of posture or whatever it might be. So hence the reason why your golf swings might look more up and then a very definitive start towards the downswing. But once you understand how to turn, as I continue to turn here, let's say I pause just post left arm horizontal, and then I continue to swing my arms up and I continue to turn my hips, you can see the way that it starts to create this effect of, looks like I'm moving left. Although the reality is the weight is completely still on this trail side. So much now actually in towards my heel, and I can feel my right glute absolutely firing. Then from here, as I pull my lead hip back, now the weight is re-established back in towards that lead side. So like I say to people that come to visit for lessons, and I've recently been doing some golf schools as well, which have gone down well. They're very much have been discussing things, but I would only entertain the level of detail as to what we are talking about today if you are demonstrating a good backswing position, well, good posture, good backswing position, and a rotational led downswing, right? Don't start, if you're somebody who is sliding all over the place and you can't stay in posture, you've got a massive early hip extension, then just keep it simple and just keep working on your rotation until you can stay more centered, because that's going to give you the most amount of consistency and it's easier to follow. Be careful, this is why we're using this as a discussion, and I've done these videos is because I don't want it to be too open to interpretation. But what I'm trying to suggest is that, as I did in the last video, that whether you move your hips this way and this way, or whether you move your hips this way and this way, effectively things will look completely different within the swing. And as I discussed in the last video, some of them have different benefits to each other. But the reality is they're still rotation led, and the weight still stays on that right hand side in transition for me, so your trail side. So even if you're like the idea of gaining more distance and you think, yeah, I want to really, fall in this way as I initiate the downswing, it's like, well, in my opinion, the reason why it looks this way is because as the pros keep turning, the upper part of the leg keeps going out, the trail hip keeps going back as they're going up, which then means the lead hip will start to look like it goes towards the target, and then from here the weight's still in the trail side and it's rotation anyway, and then that leg stays outward facing as you pull this one back. And that's why all of a sudden when you start to put these movements together, it can start to look non-rotational led. And sometimes because we're so fixated on what the lead hip is doing, we don't necessarily maybe measure from this side, which is like where maybe we should be focusing much more attention. So I think it's definitely something that inevitably we're going to come back to, and it's something that I've been doing drills and exercises on, and on the channel I will talk in detail about this, and then I'll talk about some basic hip rotation exercises equally so that it balances out for everybody that's watching. But I think it is important that you understand this, because otherwise I think the problem is when you watch professional golfers and you don't know what it is they're doing, you can sometimes think that they're moving laterally when the reality is it's rotational, distorted in terms of perspective. So hopefully enjoy the video. Always appreciate a thumbs up and a like. Remember, it's absolutely free to press that subscribe button. Press the little bell icon as well, means you receive notifications every time a new video comes out. I'll catch up with you guys again soon.